Sometimes the hardest words you'll ever say are only one word long: goodbye. It leaves your lips in a second, but it can live inside your heart for years. I learned that lesson the day I walked away from someone I loved, believing that saying goodbye would end the story. I had no idea it was only the beginning of the longest conversation I'd ever have with my own heart. People often believe that endings happen in dramatic moments. They imagine loud arguments, doors slamming, tears falling, someone walking away without looking back. But not every goodbye sounds like that. Some goodbyes happen quietly. Man's two people smiles man's two people smile one last time. They wish each other well. They wish each other well. They promise to stay friends. Cleans, they say they'll always remember the beautiful moments. Chims, then they walk in opposite directions, believing time will gently erase everything they once felt. I believe that too. I honestly thought forgetting you would simply require patience. I thought if I stayed busy enough, worked it hard enough, met enough new people, eventually your name would stop echoing inside my mind. I couldn't have been more wrong. Because forgetting someone you truly loved isn't something your heart agrees to just because your mind thinks it's logical. The strange thing about memories is that they don't ask for permission before they return. A familiar song, a favorite restaurant, a street you once walked together, the smell of coffee on a rainy morning. Suddenly, you're standing in the middle of an ordinary day while your heart quietly travels back to a life that no longer exists. Have you ever experienced that? You think you finally moved on, then one unexpected moment reminds you of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and for a few seconds, it feels as though nothing ever changed. That's the power of genuine love. It leaves fingerprints on ordinary moments. After we said goodbye, everyone around me gave the same advice: move on, forget about them. You deserve better. Menju, everything happens for a reason. People meant well, they were trying to help. But I slowly realized something. Healing doesn't happen because someone tells you to heal. Healing happens when your heart finally understands what your mind has been trying to explain all along. That takes time. Sometimes much more time than anyone else realizes. During those first few months, I became an expert at pretending. I'd smile during conversations, I'd laugh at jokes, I'd tell people I was doing fine, and in many ways, I wanted to believe those words myself. But every night when the world became quiet, honesty would finally find me. I'd replay conversations we once had, I'd wonder what I could have done differently. I'd imagine impossible scenarios where one different decision somehow changed everything. Regret is exhausting. Not because it changes the past. Because it convinces you to keep living inside it. One evening, I found an old photograph tucked inside a book I hadn't opened in years. There we were, smiling. Completely unaware that one day we'd become strangers carrying memories instead of plans. I stared at that picture for a long time, then I realized something heartbreaking. The people in that photograph no longer existed, not because we disappeared, because life had changed both of us. Sometimes we spend years trying to return to places that no longer exist, not physical places, emotional ones. We don't miss the exact person, we miss who we were when we were with them. That's a very important difference. I didn't only miss you. I missed the version of myself that believed forever was already guaranteed. Heartbreak changes more than relationships, it changes identity. Suddenly, you question things you were once completely certain about, you question your decisions, your judgment, sometimes even your own worth. I know those feelings because I lived them for a long time. I blame myself. Maybe I wasn't patient enough, maybe I didn't communicate well enough, maybe I loved too much, maybe I didn't love enough. The questions never seemed to end. Until one day, an older gentleman sat beside me in a park without saying a word. We watched people walking by for several minutes before he quietly asked, who are you still trying to forgive? His question caught me completely off guard. I smiled politely and said, myself. Oh, Mond. He nodded as though he'd expected that answer. Then he said something I'll never forget. Bleen, most people think they're trying to forget someone else, but often, they're really trying to forgive themselves for believing a dream that didn't survive. Those words stayed with me because they were true. I wasn't only grieving the loss of a relationship, I was grieving the future I'd imagined. Bane's the future where we'd celebrate birthdays together, travel together, grow old together, raised a family together. Those dreams don't disappear the day a relationship ends. They slowly fade. And every fading dream leaves behind a little sadness. That's why heartbreak feels so heavy. You're not burying one person. You're saying goodbye to an entire future that never had the chance to exist. Still, despite all the pain, I couldn't bring myself to hate you. People expected anger. They expected bitterness. They expected me to speak badly about you. But love doesn't always disappear just because two people stop walking together. Sometimes respect remains long after romance leaves. I genuinely hoped life would be kind to you. I hoped you'd smile often. I hoped you'd find peace. Told Dan because real love teaches you something beautiful. Oh, Jim, it teaches you that wishing someone happiness doesn't always require being part of it. That lesson wasn't easy. And it took months, maybe years, but eventually I understood it. Banda, one afternoon, while cleaning my apartment, I found a small note you had written years earlier. It simply said, thank you for making ordinary days feel extraordinary. And I sat there holding that piece of paper for what felt like forever. Then I smiled. And not because the pain had disappeared, but because I finally understood something. Love had happened. It was real. Just because it didn't last forever didn't mean it wasn't meaningful. Some people in our lives for a lifetime. Yet others enter to teach us lessons we'll carry for a lifetime. Both kinds of love deserve gratitude. The band as that realization settled into my heart, I slowly stopped asking one painful question. Why did we end? Instead, I began asking a much healthier one. What was this experience trying to teach me? Bleen, that single question became the beginning of my healing. The answer didn't come overnight. Bendy Healing rarely arrives all at once. It comes quietly, one lesson at a time, one peaceful morning after another. One ordinary day when you suddenly realize you smiled without forcing it. At first I thought the lesson was about letting go, then I believed it was about forgiveness. Later, I thought it was about accepting that some people simply aren't meant to stay. But the deeper I looked into my own heart, the more I realized life had been teaching me something much bigger. It was teaching me the difference between remembering someone and remaining trapped by them. Those are not the same thing. You can remember someone with gratitude, or you can remember them with chains around your heart. Benzine, for a long time I carried those chains. Every achievement felt incomplete because you weren't there to celebrate it. And every beautiful sunset reminded me of the evenings we once spent together. Every birthday felt different. And every holiday carried a quiet emptiness. The world kept moving. But a part of me remained standing in the place where we said goodbye. Then one morning, something unusual happened. I walked into a small bookstore I'd never visited before. I wasn't searching for anything in particular. Sometimes I think our feet quietly lead us where our hearts need to go. An elderly woman was arranging books on a shelf. She smiled warmly and asked if I needed help. I laughed and replied, I'm looking for something I can't seem to find. She smiled again. Sometimes people walk into bookstores looking for books, and sometimes they're looking for themselves. Her words stayed with me. I wandered through the aisles until one sentence printed on the back of an old book caught my attention. It said, your past deserves respect. It does not deserve permission to control your future. I must have read that sentence 20 times, because for the first time, someone had perfectly described what I had been doing. I wasn't honoring the past. I was living inside it. And there's a difference. Honoring the past means appreciating what it taught you. Living inside the past means refusing to allow yourself a new beginning. I quietly bought that book. Not because of the story inside, because one sentence had already changed something inside me. And as I walked home that afternoon, I asked myself a difficult question. If the person I loved could see me today, would they want me to remain stuck forever? The honest answer surprised me. No. If love was ever real, then surely it would never ask me to stop living. That realization became incredibly freeing. Because suddenly moving forward no longer felt like betrayal, it felt like honoring everything we had shared. I stopped seeing healing as forgetting you. I started seeing healing as remembering you without losing myself. That's when life slowly became lighter. I laughed more often, not because I loved you less. Because I finally loved myself enough to continue living. One day, a close friend invited me to dinner. Normally, I would have found an excuse to stay home. But something inside encouraged me to go. During dinner, everyone shared stories about mistakes they had made. Some laughed. Some became emotional. When it was my turn, I quietly said, I used to believe that goodbye was the hardest part. And everyone looked at me. I smiled. I was wrong. The hardest part was learning that life continues afterward. Not because continuing is impossible. Because continuing requires accepting that the story you imagined is no longer the story you're living. Man, that's incredibly difficult, but it's also where growth begins. We often think strength means holding on. Sometimes strength means gently opening your hand, allowing life to carry away what no longer belongs there, without resentment. Without bitterness, without losing your ability to love again. People sometimes ask me, do you still think about them? I always answer honestly, yes, sometimes I do. Certain songs still remind me of you. Certain places still bring back memories. Certain dates still quietly return, but those memories no longer break me. They simply remind me that once upon a time, two people genuinely cared for each other. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. Not every chapter is meant to last forever. Some chapters prepare you for the next one. I also realized something else. While I was trying so hard to forget you, life had quietly introduced me to a better version of myself. Someone more patient, more understanding, more compassionate, more grateful. Heartbreak had changed me, not into someone colder, into someone wiser. Pain doesn't always destroy people. Sometimes it introduces them to strengths they never knew they possessed. One afternoon, I visited the same park where that elderly gentleman had spoken to me months earlier. He wasn't there. But I sat on the same bench anyway. I smiled as I remembered his question. Yeah. Who are you still trying to forgive? Mina. This time my rucha moles my ans forgen some. This time my answer had changed. I've already forgiven myself. The moment those words left my lips, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Peace, real peace. Not because every question had been answered, because I no longer needed every answer to continue living. That may be one of the greatest signs of healing. You stop demanding explanations from life, and you start embracing gratitude instead. Gratitude for the love you experienced, gratitude for the lessons you learned, and gratitude for the strength you discovered. Gratitude for becoming someone who now understands that even broken hearts can beat with hope again. As I stood up to leave that afternoon, I looked at the empty bench one last time. And for the first time since we had said goodbye, I walked away without looking back. I used to think that looking back meant I was weak. Now I understand something completely different. Looking back is human. Living there forever is the real danger. The memories never disappeared. They simply found a different place inside my heart. They stopped being open wounds. They became quiet reminders of a chapter that helped shape the person I am today. There was a time when hearing your name could ruin my entire day. Now, if someone mentions you, I smile gently. Not because I stopped caring, because I finally learned that peace is more valuable than pain. Just for a long time, I believed moving on meant proving that I no longer loved you. I couldn't have been more mistaken. Moving on isn't about pretending someone never mattered. It's about refusing to let yesterday prevent you from embracing tomorrow. Love doesn't become meaningless simply because it ends. Some of the greatest teachers in life don't stay forever. Minds neither do some of the people who leave the deepest impact on our hearts, and that's okay. Bands, because every meaningful connection leaves behind something valuable. Sometimes it's joy, sometimes it's wisdom. Being, sometimes it's the courage to start over. One evening, while watching the sunset alone, I remembered something you once told me. Band, you smiled and said, I hope that no matter what happens in life, we both become people we're proud of. Balians, at the time, I thought those words were simply a sweet conversation. Then years later, I realized they had quietly become my mission. I couldn't control whether we stayed together. But I could control who I became afterward, so I stopped asking life to give me another chance with you, Monjant. Instead, I asked life to help me become someone worthy of whatever future was waiting for me. That single decision changed everything. I started reading again, traveling again, calling old friends again, laughing without guilt, and dreaming without fear, living without constantly comparing every new day to an old memory. Leaned little by little, life reminded me that happiness had never abandoned me. It had simply been waiting for me to open the door again. Then something happened that I never expected. One afternoon, years after our goodbye, I saw you from across the street. You were smiling, talking with someone, and you looked peaceful. For a brief moment, our eyes met. Genda, not the smile of two people still hoping to rewrite history. The smile of two people who were grateful that history had happened. Neither of us walked toward the other. Neither of us needed to. Some stories don't require another conversation. Respect can sometimes say goodbye more beautifully than words ever could. As I continued walking, I noticed something extraordinary. There was no anger, no regret, no longing, only gratitude. Gratitude that we once shared something real. Gratitude that life had allowed us to grow, even if we grew in different directions. Gratitude that love had taught me lessons success never could. That's when I finally understood the title of my own story. Goodbye really was easy to say. As it lasted only a moment, forgetting you was never easy, and perhaps it was never supposed to be. Because forgetting isn't the goal, growing is. You don't erase the people who helped shape your heart. You simply stop allowing the memories to control it. To everyone listening today, maybe you're carrying a name that still echoes in your mind. So maybe there's someone you loved with everything you had. Someone who became part of your dreams but not part of your future. Plans. If that's your story, let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. Don't rush your healing just because other people are uncomfortable with your sadness. Grief has no stopwatch. Healing has no calendar. Take the time you need. Cry when you need to. Cry. Pray when you need strength. Talk when your heart feels heavy. Sit in silence when words are too difficult. But whatever you do, don't stop living. Don't allow one goodbye to become the final chapter of your life. Your story is still being written. There are still people you haven't met who will appreciate your kindness. There are still friendships waiting to change your life. There are still dreams waiting for your courage. There are still mornings you'll wake up smiling for reasons you can't even imagine today. Never believe that one ending means everything beautiful has already happened. Chalanda, sometimes life closes one chapter because another one needs room to begin. Yes. If I could speak to the younger version of myself, the man standing there believing his world had ended, I wouldn't tell him to forget. And then I'd tell him this: one day you'll smile again, one day you'll laugh without forcing it. One day you'll remember without breaking. One day you'll understand that losing someone doesn't mean losing yourself. And one day you'll thank life not only for the love that stayed, but also for the love that left, because both help create the person you're becoming. So wherever you are today, whether you're holding on to someone who is already gone, whether you're trying to forgive yourself, whether you're wondering if your heart will ever feel whole again, please don't give up. Broken hearts are not broken forever. They heal slowly, quietly, patiently, one sunrise at a time. One brave decision at a time, one hopeful step at a time, and when you finally reach the other side of your pain, you'll discover something beautiful. You didn't survive heartbreak by becoming colder. You survived it by becoming stronger, kinder, wiser, more grateful, more compassionate, more capable of loving in healthier ways than ever before. So yes, goodbye was easy to say. Jen, Forgetting you never was, but somewhere between the memories I couldn't erase, the tears I couldn't hide, the questions I couldn't answer, and the hope I refused to lose. I found something even more valuable than the love I had lost. I found myself, and once you find yourself, no goodbye can ever take that away.